There's a very high probability that over the next few months, meme coins are going to absolutely pop off. And if I had to name the #1 chain that meme coins are active on, it would have to be Solana. Now, there's another couple of interesting parts, like for example, the fact that right now in terms of revenue, I think Solana really is the best project out there, and it doesn't really matter for us as the user what Solana, the company's revenues really are, or the cryptocurrency's revenues really are. Well, perhaps it is something nice though to consider that a project is actually profitable, because otherwise, really, if you start thinking about yield and price appreciation over time, where would it kind of really, come from? I mean, demand is there, sure, but demand for really what if they're not a profitable thing? Anyway, that is like to blur the lines really between companies and cryptos. But besides the point, we've seen the biggest run for Solana ever because the president of the United States launched a meme. And a big question back then was, what's next? What could be bigger? And in my own opinion, it doesn't actually need to get bigger than the president of the United States launching a coin, because theoretically speaking, if Bitcoin sets course for 150, 250,000, and meme coins actually go on a crazy run again, like right now they're going on a pretty good run, there's a 99.9% probability of Solana kicking off, going to the stratosphere, most likely touching even $1,000. But it's going to depend on how crazy Bitcoin goes. It's going to depend on how heavily this time around the meme coin season gets. But, logically, I think it's still going to be pretty crazy. Matter of fact, when taking a look at the Solana price right now, it's at $180. It's almost back at 200 when just shortly, let me quickly take a look at the daily chart here for Solana. Just the last time I checked, it feels like it was actually about $100-something. You can see here it actually went below $100 just last month. So we've actually already doubled in the span of 1 month here. But this is the moment we crossed back above the EMA. And here the yellow big line, and I generally always say, on a weekly perspective at least, we shouldn't really cross below that line in a bull market. We did though, and theoretically speaking, that meant for Solana it was basically bear market territory the moment we broke below 175, and I guess it was kind of true, because going from 175 all the way to like $90 is almost a 50% drop, and from there, even though we're up 100%, which is cool, just to go back to those old levels, we've still got about 70% worth of gains to go. And now comes the question, where would I be buying and when would I start selling my Solana? Now let me tell you that over a bull run, I think Solana is one of the easiest buys, just because the more meme coin activity, the more new people that hop in that want quick gain opportunities, the more Solana will most likely rise. And again, this previous top at 300, well, we really didn't break through, but I do believe, again, I can't say much about breaking through 300 this time, we'll get towards that level, again, $200 to $50 so, pretty quickly, perhaps even within days, depending on what Bitcoin does, just because, again, the demand was so crazy back then, but it was actually quite a neutral market. I mean, Bitcoin really didn't set the craziest of records. Yes, we went above 100,000, but the pace was quite slow. We had one of the biggest and best days where it went up 10K in a day. I believe right now, though, this season, the next few weeks or months, we can actually see Bitcoin go more than 20,000 up in a day, because obviously also relatively the bigger that Bitcoin gets, the bigger the moves for it should also be. So then where am I going to start selling it? Well, depending. If we're talking about my bots, which I'm also trading Solana with, let me just quickly open one of the bots we've got going on. Here is a $9,000 bot worth of Solana. Put $3,000 in at 3x leverage. It is up roughly 40% or so in the last few weeks. How, why, and when is it going to sell? Well, actually, this bot has a buying range. It's going to still buy even at... Let's just quickly open it up here and see. It's going to even still be buying if Solana goes all the way towards $331. So that's actually quite interesting, right? Even above our previously high point, I still think it's actually worth buying. Now, there is a key caveat, which is this bot, like you can see on the right here, will actually buy whenever the price starts going lower and lower and lower and sell the moment it goes up. It still keeps the majority of the position in place, though, for in case the price starts skyrocketing. But in the meantime, it is just buying and selling based on the volatility to cash in profits, which is why it's a lot better than just opening a straight long on Solana. But so realistically, even though I'd say on the short term, it might be nice to look at exiting some of the positions at around 250 over a run over a longer period, even $300, even 350, somewhere around 330, something like that, is not really that high. It's just, again, if we're talking about placing an initial range, I'd say everywhere below $300, $330, 10% above the previous high, it's not that crazy high to buy at in the grand scheme of things, right? Again, personally, I think if you're opening a straight up long, it's nicer to sell perhaps slightly earlier just for safety. But if you think of where it's going to end at the end of the bull run, obviously all these levels, even $600 is not that high, but you don't want to be blasting the top, right? Right now we have the chance to be early, and I'd say anywhere below the $330 mark is still actually quite early, will result in us having some pretty juicy gains across the bull market with some very high certainty, but more importantly, be worth it over other coins. Because again, it's not a matter of will you make money. I think even if you buy Solana at $400, you will still make money this run. That's what I personally think, but you potentially would make a lot more buying something else at that point because you're already buying so high, and at that point the run is probably already so busy that it's not worth to get into Solana anymore. But perhaps it's a quick move towards 330. At that point, I'd still be buying, potentially slightly lower than that. But again, since it's buying and selling anyway, it does not really matter that much. By the way, if you want to know more about my bots, I've got a nice little tutorial in here. You can also just check out with the first link down below the exchange itself. Sign up with the link down below, get yourself upwards of $100. And also a second link for an $800 bonus you could potentially get. And then there's a few links to different bots. You can also check here, for example, the Solana bot if you want to copy my exact settings and everything. I'll remind you that it might ask you for KYC level 1, which is basically just you verifying yourself. You have to put in a name and a country, but you can put in any name and any country. It doesn't really matter. You do not have to be from a certain country to use this platform. Only if you want to deposit loads or withdraw loads, you have to be KYC 2. But even I didn't do that, and I have hundreds of thousands of dollars on this platform. So again, right now my Solana bot, if you want to know the settings, I'm basically, even if Solana were to go to $50, which there's still a probability for it, I'm actually going to be buying at 331. I'll still be buying. Theoretically speaking, I could have set the range to 0, right? But the bigger this range, the worse. So you prefer if it's as tight as possible, but let's just say because I could put it up a little bit if I was only talking about this bull run, but I basically have this set so I can leave it and forget it. I might have to make a second portfolio just for the next few months, but this is like all the bots are set up with copyable perks in the description. The only one that's different is the XRP bot, but the rest, they're all most likely set and forget forever. Meaning I don't really have to look back at the Solana bot. Even if the price goes up or down, it'll probably never go below $50 again. And again, I might be able to put that at like 99 as of this point because we've seen the worst. Maybe Solana will never go below that level again. But I put it at 48, so I will never have to look at it again. It'll just keep on buying, keep on selling, grinding up forever and ever and ever. And selling, if you're wondering, there's no official sell. It'll always try to sell whenever it makes some money, as you can see on the right here. But the main position, it will not. And that is what you can do on your own. You could actually just edit the price range if you press this. And we edit it by, for example, adding 0.1 to it. You can see we can actually, for example, if we want to reinvest, we could do that, or we can close the bot if we want to. If you don't want to reinvest, we could release the profits that it's already made. There's a lot of different things you could do if you want to. But I could actually do most of this also with just a normal long position. The only negative thing to that being that it's not going to automatically buy when things go lower. But if I were to set up a Solana strategy, what I would go for in terms of a long, just buying it mostly, I would basically be looking for buys anywhere in this range. Let me just quickly make it clear. So anywhere basically below the $140 mark is where buys are pretty juicy and have ended up being very, very profitable time and time again. You can see it's been one of the most interesting support zones. And so if we're looking, we could go slightly higher. Actually, we could potentially go to 145, somewhere like that. Then again, just looking back at it, potentially we could actually increase the level up until where buying is okay for a slightly longer term. If you want some of the juiciest entries, again, it's been throughout this $1.30, $1.40 mark. If you want to keep your range a bit broader, where again, historically speaking, it did work out, you can actually end up buying at still about $160 or so. As of this point, we're in the long already though. If you're not, that is fine. There's two ways to go about it. One is to actually get in regardless of the price right now. For example, let's say by half, and then actually half in if we actually were to go down back to 140. So this ends up with you getting an average size of most likely somewhere around the 155 or so mark, depending on how much you bought your second time, which ultimately again is within our range of acceptable levels. Then again, with the bot strategy I talked about here, if we open a bot right now, we could again at the lowest price for our range put perhaps as low or as high, let's say, as roughly $70 or something like that, where we'd still be comfortable buying. Why am I putting it so low or why am I putting it so high? Why is 70? Well, again, if we take a look at the previous history here, January of last year, it hit $80. This year, it hit $94. It's just a very small move to go below that, but I'd say even here, $90 we could do if we just want to look at just this run. So if we were to make a new portfolio, I'd probably put it at around right around $90, where it'd still have to be buying at, because the probability of going below that level is not that high. So let's just say we put $90. With the highest level, where it should still be buying, potentially, just for making it easy for ourselves, be $270. So this is, again, where we still are comfortable buying, because most likely it's going to be able to sell it for slightly more. If you want it to be more, accurate on the short term, we could actually put $250. So it can still quickly sell for profit at these 256, 266 type of levels. So again, this is a very short-term thing, most likely. In terms of how many bots or how many grids we want, if you want a very low minimum investment, you can actually put this number very low. I think around the 458 level seems solid. In this case here, because it's such a short-term bot, we're also going to try use a little bit more leverage, make this work. And because of that, we can actually change the grids. Because I'm using 5x instead of 3x, we can put it at 496 grids. We put $1,500 in, so acting as 7,500. You know what, we'll just make it 2,000, so it's going to be a $10,000 bot. And again, if the price goes back down significantly, for example, it goes to this previously called level, $1.40 or below. Again, we're going to be quite conservative with this. We're going to say $1.40 or below. We actually will open this exact same thing up again, just doubling the amount or slightly more than that, going from a $10,000 bot to some slightly higher number. So again, all we have to do in this case here is press create. It will say it's going to buy roughly 46% of the position right now, keep most of it in stables to buy as the price goes down lower, and we press OK. Now, what are the risks? What are the good sides? So the good side to this is that it's a bull market type of bot here. It basically is going to buy as the price goes lower and going to sell as the price goes higher. Our range is quite tight though, with the liquidation price also quite high. We will have to watch for the $125 per Solana price. If the price starts going below that, we will have to add some extra margin to this position to not get ourselves liquidated. And now as time progresses, I could also actually change my price range to a higher level, even though at that point most of the position will probably already be bought. And again, what it's basically doing right here, the lower I put my highest price bound, the more of the total amount it'll have bought by that point, right? So if I want to still buy it at $300 and I do not want to invest more than the 2K that I've got in right now, acting as $10,000, and I put it only at 250, right? This is the highest price that I'll be buying at. So that's basically where I'm capped for profits for this trading game. The reason you usually put it significantly higher is that if the price keeps going higher and higher and higher, it'll still actually be buying. That is why potentially 250 is too low. This is more of a short-term thing in case we do not break the all-time high, in case we do not go towards the Trump levels. But personally, I think we could put the bound higher. Why? Again, I'm guiding you guys through the process of why this, why not, why would. If we put this as the highest price and Solana goes from this to 300 and then comes back to 295, for example, and then starts going back up, it'll not keep buying and keep selling. It basically, this is the end, this is the price range, so this is where also it's basically done for. Perhaps, again, this is too low then, in case Solana does start seeing a major move, because even though the profits will be juicy, it will still be amazing, because our lower price bound is also $90. This is not that wide, it's in this case $160 or so. We right now are basically in the middle of it all, and that means, again, it only bought half of our total investment, only $5,000 worth or so, and most of it is still looking to either buy as the price goes up, or I should say actually buy if the price goes down, and potentially sell some as the price goes up. Most of the time, it is preferable for it to still be basically buying more at these levels if you're actually bullish in the back end. You can see we've made some dollars already, about $10 or so on the $2,000 we put in. This can go to a big minus though. In the meantime, it's okay, because ultimately we're trying to make money over time, which is why, again, it actually made its first cash out. It just sold its first 0.15% or so worth of a position. So we've already seen some nice profits, about 4 cents, but that's basically what it's doing, right? The price has not moved since we opened this position perhaps, but still it is cashing in profits, cashing in profits, cashing in profits. That's the beauty of these bots. But yeah, if you want to follow them, like I said, links are down below. I still think that getting a Solana position in here is actually not the worst of ideas. Of course, if Bitcoin decides to break down, you have to be prepared to buy that dip. You have to be prepared for a deeper all right, buy point. But as it currently stands, the market is looking so good with Trump being so bullish and crazy right now that from a risk reward perspective, it does make sense to go a bit more aggressive right now. But most of my strategies that I talk about on the channel are very, very conservative, very, very safe, very, very chill. And even here, we could also just open the exact same thing with just a long, or keep one of those sorts on the side open for in case the price does start going beyond our range. But for this case, for this scenario, for the current market and the way things are going, I think this is fine. Again, we have to watch for liquidation price. If the price starts moving down significantly, we will have to adjust margin, add some money to the buy to make sure our liquidation price is lower. In this case here, if I add all this money, it will never liquidate, so then it will always be safe, basically. But again, I also have multiple Solana butts running. Let's quickly see the other one, where it is at. This one has, for example, a wider range. So ultimately, for me, it all doesn't matter so much. They all have different strategies. This one is in pretty good amount of profit. And ultimately, if I open multiple ones with different strategies, I will most likely also soon open another one for kind of a longer term, wider range strategy. One for if the bull run really starts picking up and I want to keep it going really forever. But I think this is good enough for right now, and that is my Solana strategies. Where will I be selling? I guess even at this point, I haven't really told you guys what my target will be, right? But I told you $500, $600 of Solana is still not that high for the grand scheme of things, but it depends on how hard of a run Ethereum is going to have, how much meme coins pop off, and if Bitcoin will go above the 100K levels region and actually hit the 200s or at least 150 plus. Because the moment it's not, my Solana pinpoint is still like the $300 Trump mark, right? But if it starts going and Bitcoin starts breaking above the all-time high, then every single, let's just say $30,000 that Bitcoin crosses, in terms of higher, the more I put $100 on top of my Solana prediction. So Bitcoin hitting $140, I put $400 on Solana. Bitcoin hitting 160, I put $500 on Solana, and so on and so forth. It's not exact science, but that's kind of the way I'm viewing it right now. Will I be selling at those levels? No, I'll still just sell probably around the August to January mark of this year versus next year or / next year. But this is just some strategy in the meantime to make tons of profit. But yeah, that's about it for right now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Again, make sure you press the like button if you did. And I have a lot of updating to do this shit, man. Oh.